It's 8 o'clock.
Good morning. This is Northern Light for Thursday, April 13th. I'm Monica Sandreski.
And I'm Todd Moe.
Governor Kathy Hochul is choosing 2 people to nominate to New York's highest court. Government watchdog groups and Republican lawmakers are pushing back.
The law, I think itself, I do believe in talking to some attorneys, is unconstitutional. There may be other groups that also might be interested in bringing a lawsuit.
Construction on the main drag in downtown Plattsburgh is getting underway. Our Champlain Valley reporter Kara Chapman has an update. Also, we're going to pull back the curtain and take a look at NCPR's series on libraries in the region. Some towns, like Minerva, don't have one. So that community has created one at their community food pantry.
For some people, especially if it's a senior who is going to the meal site, it's convenient for them to just go down and grab a book rather than have to travel out of town.
And we'll preview a concert for folk musician Dan Berggren this weekend at Traditional Arts in upstate New York. He's out with new music. All of that's coming up on Northern Light. Stick with us.
Broadcast of Northern Light here on North Country Public Radio is supported by Cronin's Golf Resort, a regional destination for golf, dining, and lodging in the Southern Adirondacks. Details at cronin'sgolfresort.com and AdirondackExplorer.org and the AdirondackAlmanac.com, seeking solutions to the Adirondack Parks challenges in print and online.
This is Northern Light. I'm Monica Sandreski.
And I'm Todd Moe. The city of Plattsburgh is starting construction on improvements to a main downtown street. A big power transmission project on Lake Champlain will close down a city block. Champlain Valley reporter Kara Chapman has more.
The Margaret Street reconstruction project is set to break ground on Monday, April 17th. Margaret Street is one of the most heavily trafficked streets in downtown Plattsburgh, home to many businesses and residents. The project's main purpose is to replace aging utility infrastructure that runs beneath Margaret, Court, and Brinkerhoff streets. Construction will take place in 2 phases, with the first expected to wrap by November. The rest of the work is slated for next year. Throughout the project, Margaret Street between Broad and Cornelia Streets will be temporarily reduced to one-way traffic. Traffic delays are expected. The city says on-street parking and parking lots downtown will continue to be available, though they'll be limited near active construction. Access to residential buildings and businesses will remain open throughout the project. The city will post updates every Friday morning on its online platform, My City of Plattsburgh. Beginning Monday, April 24th, part of Wilcox Dock off Cumberland Avenue will be temporarily closed to recreational use. For the next 2 years, its northern portion will be used as a staging area to support construction of the Champlain-Hudson Power Express. Once completed, the power line will bring hydroelectricity from Quebec to New York City. Wilcox Dock will serve as a receiving point for materials and a launching point for workers laying cables along the bottom of Lake Champlain. The city suggests residents use other public places for fishing, launching boats, and picnicking. Those include Champlain Monument Park, Peace Point Park, Sailors Beach, Centennial Park, and Plattsburgh City Beach. Kara Chapman, North Country Public Radio.
A Keysville farm that's been a mainstay at North Country farmers markets has declared bankruptcy. According to the Adirondack Daily Enterprise, Fledgling Crow Vegetables has stopped large-scale production and will no longer sell produce to the public. Owner Ian Adder says the 15-year-old business saw huge success at the start of the pandemic at local farmers markets and in New York City, but sales plummeted as city workers moved to more rural areas and the costs of running a farm nearly doubled due to inflation. Adder told the Enterprise he plans to sell produce to neighboring farms and contract with other farms to use his fields. He says the future of Fledgling Crow is flexible.
North Country Congresswoman Elise Stefanik on Tuesday announced her plans to run for re-election in 2024. If she wins, it'll be her 6th term in office. Stefanik had initially committed to 5 two-year terms when she first ran in 2014. The New York Post reports that Stefanik is launching a, quote, battleground fund to support Republicans running in New York State. Wins in the New York House races helped Republicans flip the House majority last year. So far, the only one potential opponent has emerged against Stefanik. Jill Lochner from Saratoga County hopes to challenge the incumbent congresswoman in the Republican primary. Stefanik hasn't had a primary opponent since she ran for her first term.
There's already controversy with Governor Kathy Hochul's latest pick for the next Chief Judge of New York. From Albany, Karen DeWitt has more.
After Hochul's first pick, Hector LaSalle was rejected by a Senate committee and voted down in a full floor vote earlier this year. The governor requested a new list of names from the state's Commission on Judicial Nomination. This time, she chose Rowan Wilson, an associate judge on the state's highest court, the Court of Appeals. Wilson is described by progressive groups as a champion of marginalized people in society. At his former law firm, he took over a pro bono case that for 40 years has fought inequality in hiring practices in the city of Birmingham, Alabama. Peter Martin, director of judicial accountability for the criminal justice group Center for Community Alternatives, opposed Hochul's selection of LaSalle, but his group backs Wilson, who Martin says will be a phenomenal chief judge.
We came to our determination more so based on what he's been like as a judge for the last 6 years, where his record has been quite consistent, really admirable and impressive, especially because it's often been in opposition to the majority of the court these recent years.
Wilson often writes the dissenting opinion on an increasingly conservative court. That includes a dissent from the High Court's rejection of congressional district lines drawn by Democrats. That decision led to a special master redrawing the lines, and in the 2022 elections, Republicans flipped 4 seats from Democrats. Martin sees Wilson's determination to stand up for his beliefs as a strength.
He's dissented many times, which shows both what he believes and how firmly he believes it, that he's willing to right dissents when necessary.
Wilson also has support of labor unions. They oppose the previous nominee. And unlike during LaSalle's nomination, no Senate Democrats have come out in opposition to Wilson. Senate Judiciary Committee Chair Brad Hoylman-Siegel says while he won't say in advance how he might vote, he says he's already impressed with Wilson's record.
We've confirmed Judge Wilson once already. I think he's obviously a strong candidate. Based on that alone, we're going to review his record closely, but he's got a long record both on the court and in the private sector as a partner at one of New York's largest law firms.
While there may be more harmony with Hochul's choice this time around, the governor's decision to pick 2 names from the commission's list is sparking some controversy. She also chose Caitlin Halligan, a former prosecutor and New York State Solicitor General, now in private practice, to replace Wilson's associate judge slot on the court. Under the rules, though, the governor is allowed to pick just 1 name from each list of nominees. But the legislature, at Hochul's request, passed a law in late March that allowed her to choose 2 names. Government watchdog groups and Republicans who are in the minority party in the legislature say that could violate the state's constitution. Senate GOP leader Robert Ortt spoke before Hochul announced her choices.
The law, I think itself, I do believe in talking to some attorneys, is unconstitutional. There may be other groups that also might be interested in bringing a lawsuit.
Democratic Senate Majority Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins says that perhaps the nomination commission should be eliminated altogether. It was created in the 1970s as a reform from the previous system and was intended to increase transparency and separate politics from the appointments. But Senate Democrats have not always been happy with the commission's lists.
Having a group of people submit, a limited number of people every time you are looking to fill a vacancy is no longer something we would like.
Any change to the process would require an amendment to the state's constitution, and that could not take effect until at least late 2025. In Albany, I'm Karen DeWitt.
With the dry, warm weather this week, state environmental officials are reminding New Yorkers that fire conditions are higher than normal and the state's burn ban is in place. Lieutenant Scott Jackson with the State Forest Rangers was out in the field while doing a Zoom call with reporters Tuesday and pointed out all the dry, brown grasses.
I mean, if you can see the dead grass in the background behind me, that is all primed to burn right now. It would not take much of a spark, whether it would be from something from somebody's barbecue grill that sparks out, or from a cigarette. Any type of flame source could get that going fairly quickly.
The Department of Environmental Conservation says spring burns are the largest cause of wildfires in the state. Since the burn ban was first implemented in 2009, wildfires are down 40%. The burn ban prohibits burning field ditches, dried leaves, grasses, downed tree branches, and other debris on residential properties through May 14th. DEC Commissioner Basil Sago says it does not include small campfires.
You can do those backyard fire pits, more than 4 feet wide, 3 feet high. You can do cooking outside, but you can't bring your debris outside and start burning it. And please abide by that. You're going to keep yourself safe. You'll keep your neighbors safe. You'll keep your community safe, and you keep our first responders on their important jobs.
According to the state, the Champlain Valley and the Glens Falls area have high fire danger right now. The Adirondacks and St. Lawrence Valley have moderate fire danger.
Saranac Lake is in the championship round of the, quote, strongest town competition. According to the Adirondack Daily Enterprise, the contest is put out by a nonprofit called Strong Towns that advocates for urban planning models outside of the suburban model. Its goals include walkability, government transparency, and reducing reliance on vehicles. Saranac Lake beat towns in British Columbia, Illinois, and Wisconsin to make it to the final round. Now it's up against Brattleboro, Vermont. Voting ends at 1 o'clock this afternoon. The winner will be announced tomorrow. Strong Towns will produce a video on the winning community and provide accommodations for a representative to attend its national gathering to receive an award. You're listening to Northern Light here on North Country Public Radio. It is 8:12. Good morning. I'm Todd Moe.
And I'm Monica Sandreski. Just ahead, Adirondack singer-songwriter Dan Berggren has been making music for 50 years. And he's out with new music ahead of his concert at Tawny this weekend. Music and conversation with Dan Berggren coming up in just a few minutes right here on Northern Light.
This is music by Saranac Project out of Saranac Lake. And you can check out more of their music anytime on our website. They're part of our Underscore project. Visit us at ncpr.org/underscore. Northern Light is supported by Gray & Gray & Associates, CPAs and accounting and financial services firm in northern New York with offices in Canton, Potsdam, and Spring Hill, Florida. GrayCPAS.com. And St. Lawrence Health, committed to keeping the community healthy and safe by providing vaccines for patients to strengthen their defenses. StLawrenceHealthSystem.org. Seems like everyone has a story to share about a favorite library or librarian, be it the first time you checked out a book, or were old enough for your own library card, or attended a story time event. We are collecting library stories, memories, and profiles for an ongoing series that we're sharing on air and online. And with me is reporter Lucy Gridden, who's helping to collect listener comments and suggestions. Hey, Lucy.
Hi, Todd. Good morning. Thank you so much for having me on here.
Absolutely.
So this is sort of your project, and I wanted to turn the tables on you for a moment and ask why you wanted to use NCPR's texting club to collect information from people about public libraries.
Right. So earlier this year, the New York Times sent photographers out across the country to document the thrum and buzz in buildings once known for silence, libraries. And I was curious about what's happening at libraries here in the North Country.
Yeah. So who did you end up talking to? Which libraries did you visit?
Well, so far we've been collecting names and suggestions from folks in our texting club and via emails, and I've spoken by phone with a few listeners about their favorite libraries and checked in with a couple of library directors. I did stop by the library in the community where I live, Norwood, in St. Lawrence County. Amanda Jones is the librarian, and Jenna Brown is her assistant, and Jenna told me that she's always loved libraries.
I've been a library rat since I can remember. Back in elementary school in the 70s, I was the only kid who was allowed to touch the microfilm machines, those film loop machines. I would help run the VCR and the TV and the projector and all of those good things. And the librarians would put aside every book on insects because they knew that was me.
So we'll hear more from Jenna Brown and Norwood librarian Amanda Jones coming up a little later in the series.
You know, I was going through all the responses we got from the people who reached out to us about libraries, and we heard from so many people about how the North Country's libraries are such an important community resource and such an important social hub. And there's so many great ones we heard about in the North Country. But we also heard that not every town has one. The town of Minerva, for example, does not have its own library. Daphne Taylor is part of our texting club, and she lives there. And she said that the closest library to Minerva is about 8 miles away in North Creek. So if you don't have a car, you really can't get there. But now she said there's sort of a pop-up library developing in the Minerva Community Center. So this former substitute teacher who used to teach at the high school, he recently passed away, but he left money to the town to build a resource center like this. And then a local carpenter built these big built-in shelves in a corner of the basement of the community center. And now volunteers are stocking them with books people can borrow.
I just love that. That's so cool. I mean, talk about a real community effort there, huh?
Yeah, and it also shows you, that the demand for books is always going to be there, Like the books are going to find a way to get to people. I talked to Teresa Fish about the project. She's the Minerva town clerk.
The building is also used for our meal site and our food pantry. For some people, especially if it's a senior who is going to the meal site, it's convenient for them to just go down and grab a book rather than have to travel out of town. And they're still working on filling the shelves because it's being filled by volunteers. But they're getting pretty full right now, so it's pretty well stocked. People have been donating books to the cause for over a year.
And I say hats off to the folks in Minerva for that pop-up library. That's really cool. And, people shared so many other, good news stories via the texting club. I didn't have time to follow up with all of them and everyone, but you went through all the responses, Lucy. And what were some of your favorite stories?
Well, I read all of the responses. We had several dozen, actually about 50 responses, and I pulled out some of the ones that really stood out to me, or things that I thought were good examples of things that lots of people said. Rachel Schaefer in the Southern Adirondacks said that because she lives with her family in the Adirondacks and they don't have cable or satellite, they've always borrowed movies from the library. She said free borrowing privileges allow you to participate equally. So she's really stressing this idea that libraries, are an equalizer and give lots of people access to media that they might not otherwise have, especially in the North Country where a lot of people don't have internet in their homes. Mary Lynn Fager in Lyons Falls, she said, the Lyons Falls Public Library will always hold a special place in my heart because my father helped renovate the old carriage house into a library when I was a child. And a lot of people talked about how a lot of libraries in the North Country were built for other things. They're buildings like barns, cabins, houses, which gives them sort of a uniqueness. Also, a lot of people gave personal shout-outs to their favorite librarians. Nancy Emrich from Keene Valley said, Karen Glass at the Keene Valley Library is, to me, the queen of librarians. She's famous for how well she reads to young children. And I think 3 or 4 people said Karen Glass is fantastic. So shout out to Karen Glass in Keene Valley, great librarian. Angela in Morristown said, Bridget Whalen Nevin at the Morristown Library is an incredible librarian. I'm a high school English teacher and I love to read. If I don't have a good library with a good librarian, I can't function. I need books and I need good people to recommend them.
Now, all these stories came to us through our NCPR texting club.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the texting club is a really great way for NCPR to get stories directly from North Country community members. So different people on our news team, this time it was you, Todd, send out text messages, maybe one text message every few weeks. And then community members can respond to our questions directly and tell us about their lives and their communities.
And you can join the NCPR texting club, right?
Yeah, you can join the NCPR texting club right now by texting NEW to 315-978-6277. And stay tuned on this project. We're going to keep working on it and looking for these stories throughout the coming year.
Thanks, Lucy. Thanks for the help.
You're welcome.
Madam Librarian, what can I do, my dear, to catch your ear? I love you madly, madly, Madam Librarian. Marianne, heaven help us if the library caught on fire and the volunteer hose brigade men had to whisper the news to Marian. Madam Librarian.
Hugh Jackman there with Marian the Librarian from The Music Man. Time now is 8:21. You're listening to Northern Light here on North Country Public Radio. I'm Todd Moe.
And I'm Monica Sandreski. In just a minute, we'll preview this weekend's concert with Adirondack folk musician Dan Berggren coming up in Canton. Then stick around after the show for Bird Note, just ahead at 8:42. But first, Todd has a look at the weather for us.
Just one word for the weather forecast today: summer. Summer. It's going to be warm, if not hot for some of us. Highs in the upper 70s, low 80s. Sunshine, light winds out of the south-southwest. Lows tonight in the 50s under clear skies. Nice tomorrow again with partly to mostly sunny skies. Friday, highs upper 70s. Saturday, partly sunny, highs in the 70s, and maybe a chance of some showers starting on Sunday. Right now, it's 60 degrees with sunshine in Canton.
A concert and dance series at Traditional Arts in upstate New York continues on Friday night with the music of Dan Berggren, an award-winning musician and educator with roots firmly in the Adirondacks. His music spans the folk music genre, from ballads about neighbors and hardworking folks, humorous ditties about black flies, to songs that pay tribute to taking care of the planet and each other.
Dan began his career as a tradition-based songsmith 50 years ago. His music has taken him around the world, and most recently he's begun to pass that skill of writing music with honesty, humor, and a strong sense of place to the next generation during summer music programs at Great Camp Sagamore. Earlier this year, Dan sent me one of his newest songs when I came down to the river. So I called him for an interview about that new song and his concert Friday night, tomorrow night in Canton. We'll get to Dan in just a moment. I had a little bit of a technical glitch here. Again, Dan Berggren singing tomorrow night in concert at Tawny Traditional Arts in upstate New York. He's going to be celebrating some new music and also 50 years of music and songwriting in the Adirondacks and other parts of the country as well. Hang on, I'll have more of Dan's music for you in just a moment. Yeah, we're back with Dan Berggren. Again, earlier, Dan sent me one of his newest songs. It's called When I Came Down to the River. He wrote about it as a tribute to his life growing up in the Adirondacks. So I touched base with him via Zoom for an interview about that new song and his concert coming up tomorrow night at Tawny in Canton.
It's sort of like a gospel song for everyone, regardless of their religion. It started out with the very simple image of me going from our house in Olmstedville down through the woods to Trout Brook, where we kept a bar of ivory soap in the crotch of a spruce tree. And after work in the summertime, we'd go down to the river, soap up and get washed up and get cooled off, and then go back up the trail to the house for supper. When I came to the river, I learned how to swim. Learned how to swim, learned how to swim. When I came to the river, I learned how to swim. And I'm still swimming today. I'm still swimming today. When I came to the mountain, I learned how to climb. Learned how to climb, learned how to climb. When I came to the mountain, I learned how to climb. And I'm still climbing today, oh Lord. I'm still climbing today. That whole feeling and memory and image gave me that one line. When I came to the river, I learned how to swim. And then I thought, well, what else is meaningful to me in my growing up, my very fortunate experience to grow up on a farm like that with mountains around me and brooks around me. So it went to when I came to the mountain, I learned how to climb. And not only is this realistic, but it's metaphorical. We have lots of mountains in our lives that we have to climb. Some aren't so pretty, but we do the work. So when I go to this concert at Tawny, I really look forward to filling that room with all of their voices. I'll lead them, but I want to hear everybody singing When I Came to the River, I Learned How to Swim. When I came to the river, I learned how to swim. Learned how to swim, learned how to swim. When I came to the river, I learned how to swim. And I'm still swimming today. I'm still swimming today.
So I want to throw out a number because your concert at Tawny also celebrates the big 50, Dan, 50 years of songwriting and performing. I don't know. I mean, what goes through your mind when you are celebrating 50 years of your music?
Well, the number itself kind of flashes right by. I was surprised myself when I realized 50 years ago when I was in the Army stationed in Germany, I wrote my first Adirondack song. It was called Harry. And I didn't realize it at the time. Not only was it my first song, my first Adirondack song, it was also my first environmental song. And that is the other path that I've been on as I write, not only taking care of the Adirondacks, but taking care of this planet. So I started songwriting because I didn't know what I was going to do with my poems that I had been writing. And I also started touring. While I was in the Army, I went on a 1-week tour. I wonder if you can guess what the most popular song, as I sang in different places in Germany, what do you think the most popular American song was that I was requested to sing?
I'm thinking it has something to do with cowboys.
Home on the Range was a close second, but first was My Bonnie Lies Over the Ocean. Oh, you're an American. Sing My Bonnie Lies Over the Ocean and Home on the Range, cowboy song. Yeah.
I want to ask Dan, we've talked many times, and you've talked about your music and your love of songwriting and certainly your love of life in the Adirondacks. What is the other sort of joy in the music for you? There's Dan Berggren, the artist. Dan Berggren, the